Hey, welcome back to the channel. Brendan here. I wanted to take a look at one of the lesser known features of Advanced Themer today, and that's the strict editor view. If you've used Advanced Themer, there's tons of different features that improve your life as a developer and make it easier for you to build websites. But I wanted to also look at what happens when you hand over a site to a client and you need to, ensure that they also have access to edit some of the things. Now, first, I'll say that it makes a lot of sense, and I personally like building this way to use custom fields, custom post types, custom taxonomies, option pages, and that lets you really sort of separate your content from your design, and it lets you change builders when you need to, and it gives a much more structured data to your client for their website needs. And so this is actually an option that will let you pass off the editor experience in bricks to a client without get overwhelming them with tons of different options and letting them access the dynamic data and all that stuff that you might not want to let them edit. So I wanted to take a look quickly at what that feature looks like in Advanced Themer, how you can use it, why you might want to use it, and yeah, let's just jump into it. So I'm just here on the page on the Advanced Themer site for the strict editor view. Take a scroll through this, and you'll see kind of what it looks like. You basically can turn on and off access to certain individual modules, and yeah, go ahead and look through that. Maxime's done a decent job with docs. And so if I go to my Bricks website and I go to Advanced Themer, theme settings, you want to make sure, first of all, that under global settings that you have strict editor view turned on, right? So I have that toggled on. It gives me this menu here, and it's got a ton of different things in it as well. So I'm just going to leave everything enabled on here. We're just going to look at mostly the toolbar and the elements today. You can also white label it. You can change the logo, change the accent color, that kind of stuff. But if I go to the toolbar tab, we can see, first of all, that I can disable all these different icons. And these are the icons at the top here, right? So all these different sort of confusing icons that, even if you use bricks all the time, you might forget what some of these are. But clients are definitely going to be sort of overwhelmed. And you also don't want to give them access to stuff like the settings that allow them to modify the actual theme. You might not want to give them access to the CSS classes and variables, all that stuff. So what I'm going to do, this is me in editor mode, right? I have all the options, sorry, in the admin mode, right? Where I have all the different options. I have all the different CSS inputs. And what I'm going to do is just turn off some of this stuff. And you can kind of make an executive decision based on what your client might need. I give stuff like breakpoints. I'll sometimes give and undo and redo. And actually, so make sure you make sure you read this. So this says disable it. So actually, I'm disabling it. So what I want to do is toggle these all, and then actually turn off stuff like breakpoint and undo and redo, and maybe like the preview or the view on front end. I'll turn off that, I guess. But we don't really want to let them access the settings or class manager. Certainly not. So if I save this, and then I'm also using admin site enhancements just to quickly switch between the editor and admin mode. So I can just click editor, and my sidebar here is cleaned up with none of the admin plugin settings. But if I go to edit bricks and I click edit the front page here, I can see my toolbar here is cleaned up. All I have are the undo, redo, preview, and the breakpoints, right? Save button. Now we also have the structure panel. And so we might want to hide something like the structure panel, because letting people get into, first of all, they have to figure out that you have to open up all these because there's, divs and things that wrap elements, and it can just be a little confusing. So I'm going to go back to the, well, let's see, go back here, and I need to switch back to the admin view and go back here, I guess. And if I open the theme settings up again, we've dealt with the toolbar, right? So we've closed the breakpoints and we have the undo, redo showing in the preview. But what I want to do here now is go to the elements tab. And this lets me enable the following elements to be editable by clients. So you can decide again what you want them to be able to edit. Stuff that is more complex that you might not want to use, and you might not even have some of these elements in your website. So what I usually do is, if the client is going to be going in and editing, first of all, have a conversation with them about what it means to edit headings on a website, right? That could affect their SEO, could affect their rankings, could affect their conversions. But if you've had that conversation and you still want to give them edit access, you can come in and turn on things like the heading, the text basic, regular text, text link, button, icon, image. Those are really the most commonly used things, especially if you are building things without the pre-made elements in bricks. I don't really use like the animated typing or the countdown, right? If you are, you can make sure those are enabled. But basically, I'm going to make sure that those are editable by my editor. And so I'll save the settings there. And again, I'll go back to my editor view and we'll edit this page in bricks. And now I see that I'm able to actually click on these elements. I can click on that and I can see some of the options here, right? So we don't see all the options, right? We don't have the CSS style tab, right? So there's no styling. They can't click and add classes. And they also importantly can't remove existing classes on elements. And so this lets you kind of lock down, if you have classes on elements, you don't want them removing them, you don't want them adding new classes, stuff like that. You can come in and turn that on, right? So let's go back again and let's go back to admin, go to our theme settings again. And basically down below here, there's some other tweaks basically for the strict editor view, right? So this will enable or disable the following strict editor builder tweaks, right? So we have some stuff on here like hide the ID and class control, hide the dynamic data trigger, right? You probably don't want your clients changing or adding dynamic data tags if they don't really know how queries work. You probably want to do stuff like disable the header and footer so they're not able to click those buttons to edit them directly in the builder interface, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to just turn on a couple things. So I like getting rid of the structure panel because basically if they're editing text, they can just click on the canvas and they don't need to mess with the structure panel. So I'm going to hide the structure panel and I'm going to disable the header and footer edit button. We're going to hide the dynamic data trigger. We're going to hide the ID and class control. All right, so I'll save that. And again, we'll go back to edit mode. We'll click on that. And so now I don't have the structure panel, right? So we're not bothered by having that. And I can just click on this and you can type directly into the canvas, of course, or you have the input here with only the heading, text that you can edit and the HTML tag, right? And you might even want to turn that off. But basically this lets you, click on any of the things here. You can notice I can click on the icon. I can click on any text element, but I can't edit the div that wraps all these things. I can't mess with that. And, most of the time you don't want your clients to be able to change that because, then they might ruin the padding or change the background color and it won't be readable. But this is a nice, easy way to allow clicking for your average person to just kind of come in here and edit the text, right? So this is a way to ensure that your clients are able to get in the editor and access only the things you want them to see. All right, so the last thing I'll do, hey, before we go on, I just want to do a quick shout out for today's sponsor, BigScoots. BigScoots is a managed WordPress hosting company that provides excellent service, excellent support, excellent performance of your WordPress site. Now, these are managed hosting plans, and they actually were kind enough to make a landing page on their website for me. So if you go to bigscoots.com/Brendan-O'Connell-clients, you'll see this landing page. And you can avail this offer. This is directly for you guys. I don't know if anyone else actually offers this through BigScoots, but yeah, you can get a 98% off your first 2 months. So almost 2 months for free if you use code Connell WP, and that's for a monthly plan. If you want to get even more savings with an annual plan, you can use code O'Connell WP annual at checkout, and that's going to give you 2 free months of hosting, or almost free, 98% off. Right, so you're going to pay a couple dollars, and they have maybe more pricing options than you're used to seeing, and it might be a little bit confusing at first, but just like check out this professional plan here. You actually, it's if you pay annual, it's actually $89 and you get 10 WordPress websites. So it's under $10 a website, and that's fully managed WordPress hosting. So you can be hosting WooCommerce, you can be hosting sort of like enterprise level stuff, and you're going to be in good hands because BigScoots has you covered. So that's basically all I wanted to say. I just want to say thank you to BigScoots again for sponsoring this and for availing my audience of this pretty cool deal to get 98% off your first 2 months. And again, if you want a monthly plan, you can get that with O'Connell WP. Or if you want an annual plan, you type in O'Connell WP annual. And that's going to be the coupon code you enter when you check out. So thanks again for watching, and let's get back to it. I'll go back to admin, and don't like that it keeps doing that. Okay. So if I go back to the advanced theme or theme settings on the strict editor view, what we can do is, and this might, again, this is kind of a personal preference, but you can disable all the controls. You see how when I clicked on a heading, I could edit the HTML tag, but if I want to just disable all of that, and then we can manually set that for our clients, right? So we're saying we don't want them to be able to edit anything by default, and then on a case-by-case basis, we can turn that on all headings or all text or all buttons. And so let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'll save that. And just to show you, I'm going to go back to edit mode. Sorry, it's a lot of switching back between edit and admin here, but just bear with me. So if I click on edit with bricks, I click on that, but I don't see anything over here, right? It's disabled all of the settings. And that doesn't really help us a ton, except that it lets us granularly control what our clients are able to edit, right? So they can click on this and they can type here. But if we want to give them access over here in the left-hand element editor panel, we need to go, first of all, back to, I think this is hopefully the last time I have to switch, right? I'm going to switch back to admin, go back to the site, and we're going to go to the theme settings again. And remember, we turned this disable all controls on by default. What we actually want to do is now go into the builder and select what people are able to edit. So I'll go back to my pages, and again, I'm in the admin role here, and I'll click. I'll click admin AT strict editor. So this was just like a page I made that has some of those elements on here. So I've just taken all those commonly used elements: heading, basic text, rich text, link text, icon, button, and image. More or less, that's going to get you pretty far. You're probably not going to need to give more access than that. And so what I can do, you can see, right, I have all these things as an admin, but we want to change this for the editor role. And so up in the AT menu here, I can click that. And there's down here in the strict editor view, first of all, we want to turn this on, and I can toggle that on. And once that's toggled on, we can see over here, all these are disabled, right? So they're not able to edit it. And if I switch this on, it means they will be able to edit only the text of the heading. And depending on your client, depending on the site, depending on a lot of things, you might want to restrict them from changing the HTML tag. You don't want them going in and saying, oh, let's make this an H1 so it's bigger. You don't want to have a bunch of H1s on your page. You might not want to let them access the style, or they'll have it linked to anything. So you're able to disable those. So I'll leave those disabled, but I'll keep the text on. Okay. And then I can go to my next element, like my basic text element, right? And again, I can make sure that they are able to edit the text, but not the HTML tag. We don't want them coming in and setting this to an address. If it's not an address, it's going to mess up their semantic HTML, right? We don't want them doing any kind of linking from that text. We don't necessarily want to put the word limit on there. So I'll just leave, again, those are going to be disabled, but I'm going to keep the actual text editing allowed. And you can do the same for the rich text, right? Same idea. Just make sure that they are able to change that. And then the text link here, you might want to let them to change the actual link text, right? So that they can edit that text there. You also might want to let them change what it links to if they are going to change the link to, potentially something within the website, or you could link out to a different, to an outside website. Same with the icon, where we can just say, all right, like let's let them access this icon to change that. I don't really want them to be linking it. We're going to make sure that's disabled. Button. Yeah, let's be able to change the link button. Don't really want them to change the link tag or the button tag. And I don't really want them to change the style, and I don't want them to change the size, but I might want to give them access to edit the link itself for the button. So we'll leave that enabled. And same with the icon. Maybe they want to add an icon, and you can give them a little bit of sort of leeway in terms of like, okay, sure, you can add an icon to this button if you really want. If you want to keep it more strict, just make sure that's toggled off, that kind of stuff. So last one's the image. We do want them to be able to change the image. Probably don't want them to be able to change the source or the HTML tag. Maybe you want them to be able to link the image to something. Sometimes people will upload like a JPEG of a flyer and they say, oh, I want this to link to, an outside website. Okay, great. So you can do that. And everything else I'm just going to leave disabled. And so before you migrate off this site, you can't just hit save here. You have to go back to the AT menu, and there's a little save button here. So we'll hit save on that. Strict editor settings saved successfully. All right, so I think I need to save again. It doesn't show that there's changes, but make sure you commit those changes. And so now, if I go back to, let's just go back to the home page, I guess, and I'll switch to the editor mode again. All right, go back to my pages, go back to the home page, edit with bricks. And now, if I click on this, all we can do is change the heading text. We're not able to change the heading tag. This is an H1, this is an H2, and I don't really want to give clients the ability to change the HTML tag, right? So they can still click on here, they can see the preview of their text, they can change their accent heading, they can change any text elements really on the website. They can just point, click, and they're not distracted with a ton of different things in the structure panel. They're not seeing a ton of different things here, but now, they can come and change the text of the button, they can change the link of the button, and they can change the icon, right? But they can't edit the HTML tag. They can't change the styles at all. So to me, it's a great way to, when you're handing off a site to a client and they do want to be able to make some small changes that are usually text only, or just, content, not really dealing with the structure or the semantic nature of the page. This is a great way to enable that, right? So they can click on anything in this card and edit that. They can edit the icon. Maybe you don't want to let them edit icons. You've probably carefully chosen your icons, right? So you can change that, right? So we'll just let's go back to here, go back to admin, and all right, it's a lot of switching, I know. We'll go back to our theme settings, and we can just turn off icon, right? We can just say, no, we don't want them to be able to edit the icons. We've carefully chosen them for each card. We're not going to allow that. All right. So we'll save that. And then we'll come back to the editor mode, go back to our pages, go back to the home page. And now I can't click it. I can't click the icon. no editing the icon, but you can still change this, right? So we're able to allow edit access for text, and then we're also able to granularly control what elements or what features within the text element they're actually even allowed to get to. No HTML tag editing, no link tagging, no styles, just the text itself. Point and click, pretty easy to use. Anyone can do this. If you can use Gutenberg, you can point and click and change things, right? So, um, you know, again, this icon is only on the button. They can't change icon elements here, right? But we did allow them to change icons in the button. Again, if you want to be able to turn that off, easy to do. Let's go back one last time, switch to admin, and we'll turn that off, right? So we go to Bricks, Advanced Themer Settings, Strict Editor, and oh, actually, sorry, it's not in here. It would be in the builder itself, right? So let's go back to our pages, edit the page with Bricks, and if I click on my button, and again go up to AT menu and turn on the strict editor edit mode. So this is like editing the editor settings, and I can say no, no more icon editing. We're going to get rid of this. In fact, let's just get rid of it. And no more editing the icons of buttons, right? So again, we'll go back up to our AT settings and hit save here. You have to click that little button. There's so many times where I've set all this up and then hit only the save button here, only to find all my changes were gone for the strict editors. Okay, so again, we'll go back, view as editor, go back to our pages, edit with Bricks. And when I click on the button, all we can do is change the button text, right? So, and we can change the link. So there you go. That I just wanted to show, I know this kind of probably went a little bit longer than I wanted, but I wanted to show a couple back and forth so you can see the changes happen in real time and what they're doing for your editors. And again, I used admin site enhancements to be able to switch between editor and admin mode. So, I mean, you can use it for a bunch of other stuff, but that is the purpose of that. Lets me quickly switch between them. So that is basically all I wanted to show you in this video. I hope that it was useful. Now, another quick caveat is that Bricks 2.0 brings some changes to further granular access for editors and for different roles. So it gives some permissions and you can actually change it so clients can add things like a component. If you want them to be able to add, a card component and then edit the fields of that, that's coming in a future Bricks version. But until next time, I hope you found this useful. If you like this, go ahead and hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.